everybody. Welcome back to Lombardi Sweep. It is almost game week. Packers trimmed their roster down to 53 people. We got a practice squad of 15, I believe, 15 out of 16 so far. That's at least what I have. But we have a full crew. Janet Wilson is here. We got Luke Reimer and Trevor Land. I am Zach Bruner. But we're going to just quickly speed through the roster who made the final 53, kind of give our thoughts, and also go over the practice squad. 16 people on the practice squad again for this year, and my list says the Packers have signed 15 people. So we will see who the last person is. I know who they want the last person to be, but let's just jump into the offense. I think we'll just walk through the depth chart quickly. Last week we talked about how LaFleur said that Etling was going to make it hard on the Packers because he played so well. They might keep 3 quarterbacks, and we said we hope that doesn't happen. They didn't do it. They kept only 2. Hooray. Right? Like, that's a good thing. However, let's talk about some of the other positions, which is weirder. They kept only 2 running backs. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are the only 2 running backs. Trevor, I see you shaking your head. What are your thoughts on the situation?
First of all, it's incredibly stupid just to have 2 running backs anyways, no matter how good they are. Like, let's say they don't get hurt, but end of the game, if you're blowing somebody out or you're getting blown out, you don't want to have those guys taking on additional punishment to their body. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, congrats, one of them goes down, so now you have to sign a free agent or bring somebody from the practice squad to now be your backup. They better get up to speed pretty damn quick, because if the second goes down, then you're really screwed. And Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon have had not Saquon Barkley injury history, but they haven't hit every game. So it just, I don't know, a position that physical, a position that you need that much when they're playing wide receivers too, it seems dumb.
Luke, Janet, do you feel the same way, or what are your overall thoughts on keeping just 2 running backs, at least so far?
Obviously, it's odd, right? Like Trevor had mentioned, if someone goes down, then you have to bring someone in, teach them the whole playbook, and all that fun jazz. But I believe Gutekunst said today that part of the reason why they kept 2 running backs is because Amari Rodgers is doing some fun in the backfield,
Right.
and it sounds like they want to experiment a little bit with that. I don't know why they would want to experiment with that. I mean, Packers tried it 10 years ago with Randall Cobb and it didn't work. It's an odd way of thinking. It's certainly an innovative way of thinking. I don't know if innovative is the right word, but maybe it's an untested, progressive way of thinking.
Well, I can tell you why they're doing it is because he projects most likely to be like Ty Montgomery, and Ty Montgomery is a running back. So they tried it with Ty Montgomery a long time ago. Packers didn't have any good coaches on the roster, on the staff. Ty Montgomery goes elsewhere, is looking like a good running back. Now they're like, hey, we got Ty Montgomery back on our team in the form of Amari Rodgers. Let's just try it again. So is it going to work? Probably not, because he's not a good football player. But like, at least it truly is. It's like the Packers have 2 running backs, but it's kind of like 2.5, I would say. But Janet, what are your thoughts? Are you sad Tyler Goodson didn't make the roster, or what's your thoughts on that?
I agree with Trevor. I don't have any doubt that they won't be successful, but it is really a stupid move, especially if one of them goes down. And knowing that like the other teams are going to target them because they know the potential they have. I feel like somebody's bound to get injured or at least out for a game, and it's just going to be all hell breaks loose.
I agree, and I think there's going to be 3 real running backs on the roster before game day. But if this is how they roll into the season, I think the biggest concern is what Trevor brought up initially is like, if you're blowing out an opponent, like, what are you going to do? You're going to put Amari Rodgers back there because his body isn't used to taking that many hits. Is it going to be A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones? Because that's stupid. I don't think the Packers are going to blow out anybody, so I don't think it's a big deal. But that is an obvious concern. Let's talk tight ends. They kept the 4 we said. Robert Tonyan, Mercedes Lewis, Josiah DeGuara, Tyler Davis. Offensive line, they kept 10, which is more than I would have. simply because the Packers continue to say we emphasize versatility on the offensive line. When you emphasize versatility, that should mean you keep less of them because you can mix and match if someone goes down. But no, they went too deep at every position. However, I do think this is the position.
Excuse me.
Bless you, Luke. I think this is the position somebody gets cut and then they pick up a running back before the season starts, or they activate either Goodson or Patrick Taylor. That makes the most sense to me. But especially because, like, right now, you don't want to give Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins too many reps in practice anyway, so they just kept a lot of depth there. But I do want your guys' opinion on the wide receivers. The obvious ones who made the roster, like they were a lock anyways, is Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Amari Rogers. We debated they're probably only going to keep 7. It's between Toure and Juwan Winfrey. We were correct that it was between those two, but after Rogers explicitly kept talking up Juwan Winfrey, I think we all knew what was going to happen, and that was Juwan Winfrey got cut. So, what's your guys' thoughts on keeping Toure, the 7th-round rookie, over somebody like Winfrey, who, well, Aaron Rodgers liked and is a good football player? Janet, you're laughing. What's your thoughts?
Because I saw the presser and didn't Butte say that he was at involving Rodgers in the conversations even more than before, and then just to cut him, it's just kind of funny. I feel bad because I mean, every time Rodgers, well, why wouldn't you want to keep a player that your quarterback is favoring, knowing that he's going to at least trust him and throw the ball to him? I don't know what's going on.
That's like asking, why would you invest in a side of the football like special teams? I mean, the answer seems obvious, but
what I will say is, I think every decision, and we'll talk about on the defensive side of the ball too, the Packers completely ignored special teams for decades, and now I think they swung completely to the other extreme in that they're making decisions only for the special teams, and that's going to cause issues now this year. I think they need to find something in the middle. I assume Toure was kept because he plays special teams. Juwan Winfrey does play special teams, but he's clearly not very good at it. Like, he's a good wide receiver, but he's just not very good on kickoff team, punt team, stuff like that, which Toure can play. For that reason, I don't care about this decision. But when we talk about the secondary, that's where my head kind of blows up. I don't really understand. But Luke, do you have any thoughts? I know you like Juwan Winfrey too, but I know you like Toure as well. So what do you think?
I don't know. This is kind of like what I would like to see Juwan Winfrey in the team for sure. I'm with Janet in saying, you'd think your franchise quarterback's opinion carries some weight in that building. But Zach, I'm kind of also with you. I'm not totally pissed or anything that Juwan Winfrey's gone. It must have felt like it must have come in the year. They kind of saw similar things between Winfrey and Toure. I don't want to say similar things, but maybe they had him in that similar tier.
Yeah.
And I'm almost wondering if Toure, just based on, I know Winfrey's young, but I feel like they want to see more of Toure. That's why they kept him, and they kind of have seen what Winfrey is these past 2 years of him on the team.
If the Packers are ever faced with a decision between someone who's played in the NFL and someone who they believe they can develop, they're always going to pick the develop. And while that's most teams, like the Packers do that to the extreme, like we've talked about, their ego in their fact that they can create any player out of nothing is kind of out of control, especially at the wide receiver position, which they have been unable to do. Devonta Adams is an anomaly, and it wasn't him because a large part of his career, they didn't even have a wide receiver coach on the roster. So you can't even credit the Packers for developing Devonta Adams. Is what it is. Before we move on to defense, so the Packers have, it looks like 6 offensive players on the practice squad. Danny Etling did get signed right away. They do have 2 running backs in Patrick Taylor and Tyler Goodson. They signed Travis Fulgham to the practice squad right away. They signed Juwan Winfrey to the practice squad about an hour ago. A little bit surprised that Winfrey decided to do that. And then they got Caleb Jones on the offensive line there as well, which we talked about last week too. Like, that's a good guy to have on the practice squad, I think.
Dude's a mammoth.
Massive. Yeah, he's the definition of a project. Like that's what you should have. Someone who very clearly could have potential, but it's hidden under all of those Glazers from Quick Trip.
Can't blame them.
No, they're fucking awesome. Let's go to defense. This is where things get confusing for me. But I do like chaos, so I love to see an implosion, and that is what this defense is going to be. Defensive line. Starters are Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark, Jaron Reed. They got TJ Slayton backing up the nose. Jonathan Ford's kind of there as well. He's there for no reason, really. And then they got Devonta Wyatt backing up one of the ends. That is the defensive line. They got 6 people. 6 isn't terrible, but it wouldn't have been terrible to have Heflin, but Jack Heflin did get signed to the practice squad, as did Chris Slayton. Luke, what's your overall thoughts on those guys? I know you're happy to see Slayton there, but overall, do you think they kept the right guys?
I think so. I think I'm on this is our 3rd year doing the show. I think every year I've said, I'd rather have guys that kind of know the system, and you can somewhat rely on them to play. So that's my only worry of seeing Jack Heflin go. But I think as a whole, I think this is one of the better defensive lines that the Packers have had, I should say, in my lifetime. So I don't necessarily know if cutting guys, how much that's going to affect it. Just because we know there's some guys on that defensive line that want to play and can play the almost the entire game.
Agreed. Janet, Trevor, any thoughts on the D-line? No, I don't blame you. Let's go to outside linebacker. They kept Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary to start, obviously. They also kept Jonathan Garvin, Tipa Galley, and Kingsley or JJ and Igbare. This is probably one of the least surprising final position groups, I think, for opening day. Don't you think?
Yep, that felt like it was chalk.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. That's what Super Bowl contenders should be. Mm-hmm. And inside linebacker, they kept 4. I think that's completely cool. Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, Chris Barnes, Isaiah McDuffie. That only means we finally rid ourselves of Ty Summers. Like a mole, a cancerous mole on your back. You didn't know it was there. You didn't know you should have got rid of it years ago, but we finally got rid of it. And boy, we're living large. That's all I have to say about him. How long has he been on the Packers? It feels like a decade.
I know. I hope that I never talk about him again.
No, I was waiting for him to be the first practice squad guy, but not at all.
I feel like I saw his whole life unravel, not unravel, but just grow. I saw him get married, have kids. It just never ended.
No, grandkids. Practice squad for the linebackers, Ladarius Hamilton, Kobe Jones are the outside backers, and we got Ray Wilborn as an inside guy. So even Ray Wilborn, I'm not even sure if Ty Summers is eligible for practice squad at this point, so never mind about that.
He feels like a guy who ends up on the Giants.
Yes, he does. He might start, in all honesty. Okay. This is where things get a little batty. It's weird. Cornerbacks, we kept 5. And I don't know. This is, without jokes, just being serious, this is the thinnest cornerback group I've ever seen on any professional football team. It's really kind of fun because I know there's going to be a legitimate chance Rashawn Gary has to play nickel this year, if in a game if someone gets hurt, and that's fun for me. But the cornerbacks are Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Rasul Douglas, Shamar John Charles, and Keyshawn Nixon. How are we feeling? Feeling good?
It's top heavy.
I mean,
it is. Yeah.
I mean, we know Kevin King's available to sign on whenever we need him. So, why carry 6?
He didn't even get invited to a camp, but he's signing with the Packers this year at some point. Mm-hmm. Probably for playoffs, and we know it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about this, in my opinion, is the 2 quote unquote backups, right? If you're saying Douglas Stokes and Alexander are the starters, Keyshawn Nixon and Shamar John Charles are, for me, 2 nickel guys, 2 slot guys. Yep. We got 3 outside corners starting. We got 2 nickel guys in the back, obviously. Nixon's a special teams guy, though. He's played nickel. He's been okay at nickel. Shamar, I think they're trying to shove him into an outside cornerback role, which doesn't make sense for his skill set or body type or anything. But he's also pretty good at special teams, which is why they made it over some of these guys. But I think one of the biggest surprises for cuts for me, just because of how good I thought he was doing on special teams, is Rico Gafford, who is now on the practice squad. So he's still here. Keandre Thomas and Benji Franklin are also cornerbacks that are on the practice squad, which tells me the Packers know that this is an incredibly thin group, but they're not doing anything about it. Like I don't understand it. I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like the Vikings just traded for another wide receiver and they're going to pass all over the Packers in week 1. Like, let's get some DBs, please.
Yeah. Do you remember, I think 2 years ago, last year, when we said, oh, we finally have, somewhat of a cornerback room. Let's try to build off of it. And now it feels like all that just went away. And we have Jay Alexander, who's great, Eric Stokes, who we've talked about him ad nauseum, and Rasul Douglas, who's really a safety, playing corner right now. I'm not saying any of those players are bad, but that's it. That's all the Packers have right now at corner.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because they're older and, you want to throw them in as the cornerback 1, but Joe Hayden and Chris Harris Jr. are still free agents. Like, if you're talking about depth, if they take the right price, that's at least worth a shot to think about. But clearly they don't care about it.
The issue with that is neither of those guys are going to play special teams at all. So that's why they're hard to sign after camp and all that anyways. But then for the Packers, who seem like, honestly, I think Bisaccia's making every decision right now. Like, he's thinking about his special teams and he's telling them, this is who we need for special teams. Screw the offense, screw the defense, essentially. That's what the decisions are being made on, kind of. But then also, I think Rico Gafford is good on special teams. And for me personally, I want as many DBs on my kickoff team as possible. DBs or linebackers, and both positions are pretty thin. So, like, there's going to be, every position's thin. There's so many offensive linemen and defensive linemen right now. But, like, we are going to need Romeo Doubs to play kickoff. We're going to need Torrey to play kickoff, probably Amari Rogers. Tyler Davis is going to be out there. DeGuara probably is going to be on kickoff team as well. Like, there's a lot of guys who not only should they probably not be on kickoff team, whose primary duty is not to tackle ever in their life, but are also, they're needed on the offense. Like they need to play a role, a lot of these guys. Maybe not those tight ends, but like Romeo Doubs, if he gets hurt on kickoff team, the Packers are never going to sign a guy for special teams ever again. They're going to completely ignore that third of the game.
I think the running theme in the show so far has been going over each position. What does that mean for special teams? And so far, it doesn't sound great.
It doesn't sound great, but also, like, they're only signed and they only made the team, a lot of these guys, because they play special teams and their counterparts did not, which is fine. And I don't mind that because we need to improve special teams. But when Keyshawn Nixon, yes, he's mostly a special team signing. He's also cornerback 4. Like, it's not like he's buried on the depth chart. He's the 4th in line to see the field, probably. So, they're going to be playing defensive snaps, and hopefully they don't get burnt. Safety, obviously, Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage are the 2 starters. Behind them, Tariq Carpenter, Dallin Leavitt, who, again, just a special teams guy. Packers cut Abernathy, which was kind of a surprise. They signed today Rudy Ford, who is kind of a career special teams player. He's listed as a safety. He played almost exclusively slot cornerback last season when he was on defense, and he's been on a bunch of bad defenses. He was with Jacksonville last year. And he's also not very good at – he's a career special teams guy, but he's not very good. Like, last year he had 2 tackles, 4 missed tackles on 100, I believe, coverage snaps, punt or kickoff. Like, he's not that good, but he's just a safety or just a special team signing. So again, just going over those safeties, we got Adrian Amos and Savage starting. We got Levitt, who is mostly a special teams guy. We got Rudy Ford, who's mostly a special teams guy, partly a slot cornerback. And then we got Tarek Carpenter, who we were thinking, and everyone was thinking, including Gudikins, was going to play linebacker. So if Savage gets hurt and leaves the game like he does every single week, that means we're probably going to move Douglas back to safety. And one of our 5 nickel corners, I guess, are going to come down and play that, which again is not the worst thing, but there's certainly better alternatives, I think.
Well, one of the guys that I was surprised to see cut at the safety position, I shouldn't say surprised to see cut, but was interested in it, was Sean Davis. I thought he played fine in coverage against New Orleans and Kansas City, especially. Because like we said, Tariq Carpenter is almost like that kind of that hybrid linebacker safety role. Like, I don't even know if that even works in the NFL. So to me, like you said, Zach, with the, these NFC teams gearing up in the past, it almost felt like Sean Davis should be on the team instead of Terry Carpenter. But maybe it's a little apples oranges there or whatever.
Well, looking at this in review, like the 10 offensive linemen, if we just kept 9, that would solve an issue. And 8 would solve a lot of these issues, and still have 8. And you still can have guys on your practice squad. So, yeah, 10 caused a lot of issues.
That's why I'm saying, like, I'm pretty confident the Packers aren't going to roll into week 1 with 10 offensive linemen. I would assume Rasheed Walker either goes to the practice squad or, God forbid, they cut Jake Hansen and leave him on the side of the road somewhere. That could be fine too. But neither of those guys need to be on the active roster. But then they would probably sign a running back, and the running back's probably going to play special teams, which is fine. That helps at least. They said essentially today, I guess I should say the only other person that we didn't say on the practice squad is Ramiz Ahmed, the kicker, who was fine, which means there's one empty spot. The Packers cut Micah Abernathy specifically to pick up Rudy Ford, the special team safety we just talked about, who's a nickel corner. And they want to get Abernathy back on the practice squad. So I'm assuming he is the last guy who's going to make it if he chooses to come here, which would give us 16.
Yeah. My question for the three of you, and maybe it's not, too important or whatever, but am I reading too deep into them keeping Ramirez Ahmed on the practice squad? Is that something that maybe Mason Crosby's out the door next year? Something like that? And Ahmed hasn't missed since, he got signed, practice or games. So I'm wondering if they like something out of him. There's a reason that they're keeping him on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think he's good. And he obviously played well in the USFL right before this. I kind of think this is Crosby's last year regardless, no matter what. Like, I think it's his active decision as well. I think he knows he's done. I think they have him there just because of Crosby's health. Like, he's just coming back. He just got activated. So who knows if he's going to immediately have a setback, and which would blow, obviously. So I'm assuming they just want to have somebody in town who can at least kick. So we're not, I don't even know. Who would be our backup? Probably Tyler Davis. Like, somebody like that would probably be our backup kicker.
Mari Rogers.
Yeah, dude, all Swiss Army knife. Haven't seen a guy like him. But yeah, and then obviously, if you care, I suppose, Mason Crosby, kicker, Pat O'Donnell, punter, and Jack Coco, the rookie long snapper, who I think has been fine. We haven't really heard his name, which is the best news possible.
Yep.
Any overall feelings, overall opinions on this 53-man roster, 15-man practice squad so far?
I think, maybe I'll speak for the four of us here, but I think that the biggest surprise to get cut was Juwann Winfree. Otherwise, I think, it kind of went the way that a lot of people had predicted it to. This training camp didn't feel like a lot of guys were trying. Maybe there's a lot of guys in the bubble that could come in and make an immediate impact. It didn't feel like that to me. It just kind of felt like getting back into football mode, with a couple guys here and there. Obviously, the big story of training camp was the receivers, and now we kind of have a better idea of what we're running into for another run at the Super Bowl.
I'm not gonna lie, I got more excited for Lions Hard Knocks training camp than I did for ours. I saw it like this past weekend. I binge watched it all, and I was like more pumped for that, to be honest.
That's the right opinion. Like,
Yeah.
anything with Dan Campbell's, at least it gets your blood pumping a little bit at least.
Yeah, I wanted to work out. It was already like 12 in the morning, and I was like, man, I want to go do some up downs. Like,
Trevor, what are your thoughts on this final roster so far?
It's when I told Ben Fennell he was a dumbass for saying Amari Rodgers like Randall Cobb, I didn't expect to be proven right in less than 2 years, but I'm here for it. So, that's kind of cool. But other than that, it looks like just another season where we're making some pretty, I'm not even going to say interesting, just some pretty critical misses, in my opinion. I'm never going to agree 100% with the front office, nor should I. But it seems like they don't get the message. They don't understand the middle ground. And when you're playing for a Super Bowl and you're already having troubles going all in, that doesn't seem like a formula that's going to get you to the promised land.
I'm going to remain somewhat neutral just because, like I said, there's 10-ish, 11-ish days until the Packers actually play a game.
Mm-hmm.
I assume their practice squad was pretty strategic with the 2 running backs and everything they can move around. So I'm assuming some of the decisions that have been made as of now is more so for insurance, more so for easier practice and stuff like that. So let's just hope that's the case. Otherwise, if we go into the season week 1 then with this roster, then you know what? I'm done. I will be fully critical. That will be the straw that broke the camel's back.
I just want to add too, kind of going on the cuts, like maybe the people that we were kind of interested in, they really made the team anyways on the practice squad. Like all the guys that were there, they're a part of the Packers organization.
Honestly, I don't think Juwan Winfrey would have returned if not for like a handshake sort of agreement that he's going to be on the active roster, or like he is going to have his number called at some point during the season, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's good enough to have made a 53-man team somewhere else for sure. Mm-hmm. He could have been on the Ravens. Like he could have made that team. He
kind of feels like that he paid his debt to practice squad and working his way up. Like he was in the NFL last year. Like he should be, I shouldn't say a starting receiver, but definitely not a practice squad receiver.
Right. So we shall see. We'll see what happens. Christian Watson certainly isn't 100% right now. We could see him, being put on the PUP list or something and activate Juwan Winfrey. Who knows? But that is all we have for this week. Next week, again, Wednesday night live on the YouTube.com/Flurry Sports. Also on the Lombardi Sweep Facebook page, which is 3 likes away from 1,000. So go do that. But yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday night live and then publish this Thursday everywhere you listen. Goodbye.